Recording. So good day, everyone. So we're now on the next part of our discussion here in contemporary world. Remember, my previous presentation or lecture is based on the introduction. What are the objectives that I have given everyone on the things that we need to learn here in the contemporary world? And our first topic is regarding globalization. So my last lecture uh, were concentrated on the different meanings, di ba, of globalization and the different approaches of globalization. Like for example, globalization as an economic process. Ano pa yung mga yun? We also have the different escapes on globalization. Globalization as a political process. And then still, this is a continuation of our last lecture. So review lang tayo. The last lecture ko is it pertains about yung mga global uni, di ba? When say global uni, it is nonsense. So globalization is nonsense because of the following. First one is we have the rejectionists, wherein they believe that globalization is cannot be defined kasi masyadong malawak yan. It's like nationalism. It is a abstract and very vague for us to define. Another one is we have skepticism when they told us that globalization is only centered with the most developed or well-developed countries, like for example the North Americans, the Europeans as well. Here in Eastern Asia, we have the China, di ba? Pero yung ibang mahihirap na countries are parang saling pusa lang sila, di ba? Even though they are part of the globalization, mas concentrated yan sa mga developing countries or well-developed countries, di ba? And then sa modifiers, it pertains about the inaccurate of history, all of those things. So let's proceed now on market globalism naman. So here in market globalism, I think I explained the last meeting, pero sige, explain ko ulit. When say market globalism, we try to see the market not on a small scale, but we try to look on the market at the large scale. As much as possible, we try to look on the market on a global perspective. So unang-una, paano ba natin tingnan ang market in a global perspective? So very simple lang, di ba? Most likely when you say market globalism, it is concentrated more on business companies who have a very humongous amount of money, net worth, or halos silang nagpo-produce ng different products being distributed in a different parts of the globe. Like for example, we have the Apple. I think Apple now is the uh, most expensive company. And then we have the Google as well. Kasi nga, ang Google halos hawak lahat ng internet browsers natin. Like for example, yan, Google search engine. We have the YouTube as well. Or even here I'm using the YouTube now. So sa Google din ito. And then we also have different Google softwares na mga silang may hawak. Diba? So when we say global market globalism, parang siyang ganun. It pertains about companies, pero hindi naman. Actually, when you say market globalism, it concerns everything then. Parang globalism din yan. More concentrated lang siya on economy or economics. So when you say economics, hindi lang dito, it does not only pertain here about the business or companies that I'm talking a while back kanina, but it also concerns the people who are buying these products or the consumers together with the political interventions. When say political intervention, ano ba ang role ng government in this economy or economics perspective of market globalism. And may mga social culture din tayo. So, ibig sabihin, when say social culture, what is the effect of this culture that helps or minsan parang tinatanggal niya or pinapababa niya ang economy ng isang bansa. Kasi minsan, because of the culture of the people who are staying on that certain country, somewhat it is the one that degrades the economy of that country. Okay, but anyway, I'll be giving some examples naman regarding that one. So first one, under here in market globalism, we have the ideological dimension of globalization. So here, Basahin ko muna ha, and then I will give an explanation after reading this one. During the early 1990s, the emphasis of globalization was dominated by the economic and technological features of globalization. Later, the role of incorporating markets and new information know-hows became part of understanding the process of globalization. This section incorporates the ideological aspect of globalization and the roles and purposes of political ideologies, and it also integrates ideas on the six central claims of market globalism. So, unang-una, let's explain muna yung on the first sentence ng paragraph na to. Sabi niya dito, the emphasis of globalization was dominated by economic and technological features of globalization. So, ang pinartain niya sa atin dito, there is a economic technological advancement in 1990s pa, di ba? Technological advancement for the development of globalism. So let's go back with our own history. Ano ba ang mga nangyari noong 1990s? Bakit on 1990s, sinabi dito that technological and economic features of globalization were the ones who dominated in globalization itself. So let's go back in 1990s. Ano ba ang mga different inventions or different discoveries that made these technologies as part of our own globalization? Okay? Anyone? Of course, walang sasagot. I am recording only this video. Maybe some of you answer. Maybe it is the use of the automobiles. Okay, so very good suggestion when you say automobiles. But actually, automobiles started from 1930s pa. Well, of course, it came from we have Henry Ford introducing his own company car in 1930s as well, looking for investors. And then from 1930s to 1950s, medyo nagkakaroon na rin tayo ng different companies who are starting making automobiles. Like for example, we have Toyota. They have started from, so Toyota before, it was only a textile, and then they converted that one into a automobile company hanggang yan, lahat na sila nagkaroon na. Sa Japan, we have the Nissan, we have the Honda, Soichiro, di ba? All of those things, and different companies, even Volkswagen in Europe. So from 1990s, hindi siya automobiles. Another suggestion, some of you would tell us, sir, it is the use of the computers. Pwede rin, di ba? So, of course, that is also part of technological advancement 1990s, the use of computers, the use of hardware. So, tama ka. You're on the right line when you say computers na. Pero it's not actually the computer that made the globalization in 1990s made a domination, di ba? So it's not the invention of computers that started the domination of technological advancement that contributed to the globalization. Even though it started pa nung World War II during the time of Alan Turing, di ba? Wherein they need to they need to encrypt all of the codes being given by the Nazi party. Of course, kasi noon during the World War II, ginagawa nila, in order for us to send a message, meron silang tinatawag na enigma, and that enigma is para siyang encoder na may mga codes. Like for example, A stands for letter C, parang mga ganon, and those codes are being changed every day. And of course, Alan Turing created a parang hardware in order to decode these mga codes. So, parang doon. Pero hindi siya computer. So anyway, of course, it all started coming from the organization known as the ARPANET. Okay? As in capital A, R, P, A, N, E, T. Okay? So ARPANET stands for Advanced Research Projects, our Projects Agency Network. So ARPANET is an organization or an agency, government agency ito sa Amerika, who's responsible for researches, especially for military personnel. So coming from that one, ARPANET was, I think it was established or created in 1966 for making researches during the time of the Cold War. Kasi nga, di ba, there is a Cold War. When say Cold War, wala namang war na nangyari between America and then Russia. But still, there are some spies being sent by these different countries before. But anyway, so it was started by ARPANET. So during the time of ARPANET from 1980s to 90s, ang gusto nilang mangyari noon, magkaroon sana ng document sharing or information sharing. So ibig sabihin, even though ARPANET is located in some state of America, makaka-share siya ng isang information with different states in America para mas mabilis yung so everybody of the military could access the file, hindi yung sila lang. So they have created a software, they have created the hard drive as well. So parang may mga cables na yan. Okay, so from the cables, like for example, we are here in Baguio and we would like to share an information sa military personnel natin sa Pangasinan. So ang ginawa nila, they have created different cables wherein yung personnel there in Pangasinan could now try to access my documents which is shared for everybody. So ganoon ang ginawa ng ARPANET. Until such time, it was later developed and later, it was open to the public in 1995. And it was later, again, renamed as Internet na. So, ito na yung mga internet natin. So, the main technological advancement or revolutionary thing that happened in 1990s for technological advancement here in globalization is we have the rise now of internet. Excuse me. We all know naman that internet is somewhat the thing that we use every day in our lives, di ba? Especially here in our online class. Without the internet, we cannot communicate to each other, di ba? Ano bang mga nagagawa ng internet? Because of internet, may Facebook, everyone could share, di ba? Kung dahil may internet, may Google. Everything, every question that you would like to ask, masasagot ni Google, di ba? All of those things. So, and most likely, it is part of our own communication now. So, therefore, the communication now between different markets, when I say different markets, markets sa different countries, ha? Okay, so markets sa Pilipinas, markets sa America are now being integrated. So, when you say integrated or market integration, nagkakaroon na ng the same products even though there are different places. Kasi before internet, during the 1950s or 1900 to 1950s hanggang 2000, I know, hanggang 1980s, the product being produced on the different countries may have different models. Like for example, noon, sa tingin mo yung cellphone mo pinakabago na, 'di ba? Alcatel or hindi ko lang kung naabutan niyo yung mga yan, 'di ba? First set of cellphones before, tinatawag yung mga Alcatel, yung mga antenna pa during the early 2000 or the late 2000. And then after that one, may yung mga Nokia 3310, 3315. Those are the old cell phones that we had before. But anyway, so yung mga products natin, so sa tingin natin, yun na yung pinaka-latest. Pero hindi pala. May mga pinaka-latest pa na different models. So for different countries, the products there differ kasi nga, kala nila latest na yun, hindi pa pala latest. Especially here in the Philippines, di ba? But because of this internet, because of this sharing the documents that we have, there is now a market integration wherein there is now a uniformity of the products that we have despite we are located in the different parts of the globe. Like for example, ano ba ang latest iPhone ngayon? We have the iPhone, I do not know, iPhone 11 na, iPhone 11s. I do not know pag may iPhone 11, 12 na rin. Pero what I am telling here is that hindi na nahuhuli yung mga different countries for getting the latest version of the product. Like for example, sa America meron ng iPhone 11. Pero sa Pilipinas meron na ba? Meron na rin, di ba? That is now market integration. So halos magkakaparehas na tayo. Okay, so that is first part. We have the internet or the importance of internet here. Later, the role of incorporating markets and new information know-hows became part of the understanding. Yan na. Yan na. Yung sinasabi ko kanina, the information now is being shared for everyone because of the internet. This section incorporates the ideological aspect of globalization and the roles and purposes of political ideologies. Mamaya explain ko kung anong mga political ideologies natin. It also integrates the ideas on the 6 central claims of market globalism. So mamaya, I will also give an explanation regarding the 6 claims of market globalism. Okay, so next we have the political ideologies and then the global imaginary. Okay, so basahin ko muna. The concept ideology was first introduced by Anton de Tracy in the 18th century. For this Enlightenment thinker, the term means positivistic science of ideas using the empirical tools borrowed from the natural sciences. So first one, dito muna tayo. So sino ba si Anton Destutt? Anton Destutt is actually a para siyang government servant. Okay, he is a public servant in France, in Paris. I think he was born in 1784 and he died in, I I do not know, parang 1850s nata siya namatay. But anyway, Anton Destutt was a public servant. So most of his time, he stayed on the government. He became also a member of the House of the Senate in Paris, and he was a public servant for almost half of his life. So during this time, sabi niya, I think there are different science of ideas. Okay. Kasi before, when we say science, it pertains about zoology, di ba? Mga biology, the study of life, the study of non-living things, all of those things. So sabi niya rin, kung may science, I think meron ding parang part ng isang prinsipyo ng mga tao, or we have the body of principles, the body of beliefs of different persons on a certain community. And he called that one as a ideology. And unang-una, ano ba ang ideology? Maybe some of you have heard this word, pero hindi nyo alam kung ano ang meaning ng ideology. Diba? Sabi nyo, may political ideology, may mga social ideology. Well, of course, from the word itself, when you say ideology, these are the study of ideas, or these are the body of ideas, or body of principles and ideas. Meaning, mayroon kang isang body of idea. Ano ba ang mga examples ng ideology natin? So since we are part, it is defined by a government servant or sa gobyerno, most likely concentrated siya sa political ideologies. So examples of political ideologies dito, ang dami tayo, di ba? We have the liberalism, and then we have communism. Ang dami, we have para siyang different types of the government. So those are political ideologies. Mamaya explain ko what are the different examples, or explain ko yung mga ano ba ang communism, and then ano ba ang liberalism, ano ba ang mga anarchism, di ba? So those are political ideologies. So ibig sabihin, sabihan dito, according to Paul Ricoeur 1986, the first functional level of ideology is the ideology as distortion. It refers to the construction of contorted descriptions of social truth. And this process obscure the difference between things as they are perceived in theory and things as they are viewed in reality. So ibig sabihin, ideology, here are the theories, and minsan we try to practice our own ideologies. And very good example of this one, di ba? We have here in the Philippines, anong ideology yung pinapractice natin? Of course, we're practicing the ideology of liberalism, di ba? When you say liberalism, it pertains about the liberty of the people, and then the equal implementation of law. So we are, all of the people here in the Philippines are being managed by the law, and dapat ang law natin would be applied to everyone equally. So therefore there is no one above the law. So dapat may rule of law. Everybody must follow the law, and no one is excused from the law. However, hindi naman lahat tayo are practicing liberalism. Meron din tinatawag ng mga communism. And that communism now are, in some point, ito na yung mga some insurgencies natin, ay hindi naman insurgencies. Some organizations are practicing communism. Like for example, we have the NPA, di ba? The New People's Army. So iba ang prinsipyo nila sa prinsipyo ng mga liberalism. When say liberalism, it pertains about democracy rin. Sa kanila, when say communism, pangit daw ang, kasi according to communism, dapat daw, the main evil thing in our own culture or ideology here in liberalism is that everybody has their own private property. Kasi in communism, they believe that very unequal daw ang mga tao because of that private property. So therefore, for communism, dapat alisin natin ang private property and all of us must be equal. So lahat ng utilities must be used for the public. So lahat daw ang gobyerno ang magbibigay sa mga tao, gobyerno ang bibigay ng mga trabaho, gobyerno ang magbibigay ng mga kailangan natin, public utilities, ng mga grocery stores, ng markets natin. Yan dapat ang trabaho daw ng gobyerno according to communism. They will provide everything and then wala ka nang aalahanin as part of communism. Pero you are not allowed to own private properties. Yun. Basta magkakaiba sila ng mga ideya. So as part of globalism here, or globalization, so ano ba ang role ng political ideologies natin in our own globalization? There is a big impact of political ideologies in terms of globalization. Okay, compare na lang natin. You try to compare the North Korea, who is practicing communism or socialism, together with America, who are practicing liberalism. Diba? So, sa tingin nyo, in terms of economy, sino mas mayaman? Alam naman natin na mas mayaman ang states, di ba? In terms of military, meron din ng North Korea, pero mas madami ang states, di ba? In terms of freedom, sino mas madami? Of course, states pa rin. Of course, of discipline, I think siguro mga North Korean citizens ang mas disiplano. Okay, so as part of globalism, ano ba ang role ng ating political ideologies? So, yung example natin, North Korea and then states. So here in the states, if you're a business person, you could try to sell whatever you want as long as you need to register within your own government to get your own business permit. So let's take an example. We have the Apple. And Apple could sell cell phones, could sell laptops as well, mga gadgets or hardwares nila to all of the consumers there in America. Pero it's not only limited on American citizens. They're also sending their own products worldwide, di ba? Or different countries. However, when you try to compare here in North Korea, unang-una, if you're a businessman, you are not allowed to create your own business. Kasi nga, you're a part of communism. All of the properties must be in public. Ibig sabihin, unang-una, hindi ka na makaka-create ng sarili mong business. And therefore, kulang ba ang products na sinusupply? Depende yan sa government natin. But in terms of North Korea, as part of the things that I have read on North Korea, of course, minsan nagkukulang sila ng grocery stores, mga stocks nila. So minsan may nagugutom. But anyway, from that situation, it is still because of communism pa rin. Kasi nga, they are not allowing to get imported products. So bawal sila kumuha ng imported products. As much as possible, they need to maximize the products being produced by their own country. Diba? And that was the government. So lahat kasi may trabaho, gobyerno pag communism yan. So ibig sabihin, the market is very limited. Wala kang masyadong pagpipilian, walang competition kasi nga government ang may hawak lahat ng businesses, di ba? So from that alone, you can tell now the difference or the role of a certain political ideology that may affect the economy of a certain country. So ganyan kalakas ang political ideology natin in terms of influencing our market globalism, 'di ba? So ganun. So next na tayo, or we have the next slide here. So next here is we have political ideologies and the social imaginary. Social imaginaries are neither theories nor ideologies, but are implied background understandings of a group's shared customs, and the social imaginary explains how a group of people fit one and their expectations of every member within the community. So, ibig sabihin, when say social imaginary, it is more concentrated on the culture of the people who are staying on that community. Okay? So, halos parehas din yan sa ating culture na yan. Your culture kasi somewhat and some point influences on making your own decisions, di ba? So, paano ba yan? So, magawa tayong example in terms of social imaginary wherein your culture is influencing you in making decision making, because that decision making could affect also the economy of that certain community. Okay? Very good example alone is dito sa ating region here in Cordillera or here in Benguet or Mountain Province, di ba? Ano ba ang mga product natin na hindi binebenta sa ibang lugar? Now, like for example, or hindi mo matatagpuan sa ibang lugar. Like for example is we have a atag, di ba? Even yan, itag, kiniing. So, dito mo lang makikita yan. Pero in some part of the areas, wala. And pag binenta mo tong products na to on the different parts of Luzon, like for example, Pangasinan, Ilocos, binenta mo yung itag or kiniing, tapos makikita nila yung karne na may mga uod-uod, di ba? Sa tingin mo, bibilhin ba ng mga tao yon? Of course, hindi. Why? Because based on their own culture, hindi nila alam kung kinakain ba yun or hindi. Unless you're going to sell kiniing or a tag here in Benguet or in Mountain Province, binibili siya ng mga tao. So, ibig sabihin, the market is there, pero it depends now on the decision of the people whether to buy a certain product or not. If the people buy it, then good for the economy. But what I'm only telling here is that culture is somewhat, it affects our own decision making for buying this product. And because of that decision making, it also affects the market globalism. Kasi nga, hindi ka naman pwedeng magbenta ng isang bagay kung walang demand. You still need the demand of the people. Hanapin muna ng taong product na to. You create now the product and then ibenta mo na yung product. Kaya nga hindi tayo gumagawa ng mga bagay-bagay na hindi bibilihin ng mga tao. Parang businessman din yan. We are more on the profit. And how do we get profit? Kailangan bilihin ng tao. And we need to look for the things na kailangan ng mga tao that they need to buy. Diba? Okay, so next tayo. Ayan na. So we are now on the core claims of market globalism. We have 6 claims here that I'll be explaining. First claim is globalization is about the liberalization and global integration of market. So dalawang i-discuss natin na concept dito. We have the liberalization and then the global integration. These claims argues that the vital assets of market globalism are the liberalization and integration of worldwide markets and the lessening of government intervention in the national and global economies. Thus, privatization, free trade, and unconstrained capital flows are seen as the paramount ways for attaining personal liberty and then material advancement in the world. So what do we mean when we explain here about the claim number 1? So sabi niya dito, we need to lessen the government intervention. Yes, tama ka. In globalization kasi, it is more concentrated on the economy. And when say economy, it pertains about the market. And when you say the market, it pertains about the companies and different business establishments. So lahat ng mga business establishments natin, whether they're operating in domestic or international, they need to abide the rules and regulations being set by the government. Ibig sabihin, may government intervention. So ano ba ang government intervention na to? Very simple. Very good example here of government intervention is we have the Department of Trade and Industry. And minsan, ano ba ang ginagawa ng trade and industry? They're regulating now the prices of the different products. Meaning, they're protecting the consumers coming from the products being produced by these different companies. Well, if you are a consumer, gusto mo na may mas madaming government intervention. Pero pag ikaw si company, you are the businessman, of course, as much as possible, wala sanang government intervention. Okay? Now, as part of globalization here, if you're going to observe, noon ang malaki ang intervention or role ng government in terms of businesses. Pero habang palaki ng palaki ang ating mga companies, globalization natin, tapos may corruption pa. So para yung government intervention natin is medyo nalilesen na. And it is now, okay, in theory kasi natawag dito, yung gusto mong alisin, pure, wala dapat na government intervention, ang tawag dito ay laissez-faire. It is the theory of the laissez-faire. Okay? That is known as the theory that explains na dapat maalis ang government intervention. Pero hindi siya ganun ka-perfect. Kasi nga halos lahat ng ating businesses, mga companies being regulated siya ng government natin. So, yung globalization natin, minsan talaga naaalis na yung government intervention. Minsan, like for example, ano mga big companies natin o automobiles? Excuse me. We have Toyota, di ba? We have Nissan. For Japanese cars, European cars, we have mga Volkswagen, ano pa? So, all of those car automobiles. So, minsan, they are importing their own products. And then, minsan din, may mga smuggled, di ba? Smuggled cars or smuggled supercars coming here in the Philippines. And of course, what agency is responsible for for importing the products? We have the Bureau of Customs. Minsan, binibigyan na lang nung mga company o ito, pera mo, and then pinapalusot na sila. So, the government intervention now is being nawawala na, ibig kong sabihin dito. Kasi because of the bribe or because of the corruption as well. Pero parang part na rin kasi ng globalization. Kasi if there is a lot of government intervention, hindi lalaki ng lalaki ang globalization. Since globalization is becoming bigger and bigger, not only in terms of social and political, but as well as economic, talagang natatanggal na ang ating government intervention. Kaya nga liberalization na siya. So ibig sabihin, everyone could sell whatever they want. Di ba? Yun. Ngayon, sa Baguio, di ba? If you're going to observe, meron yung POSD natin. When si POSD, it is the Public Office Safety ata. Yes, Public Office Safety Department. Wherein they're responsible for apprehending yung mga nagbebenta ng mga walang business permit. So, government intervention na naman yun. Since yun ang nangyayari, kasi nangyayari nun as part of globalization. Pero as much as possible, gustong magkaroon ng government intervention. It is more on privatization. Pag may free trade tayo, sabi ko nga kanina, mahirap lang kasi sa free trade na yan, kung walang government intervention, hindi na siya nare-regulate. And the problem there, na pag hindi siya na-regulate, the prices may go up, the quality of the products is bad, all of those things. So, in my own opinion then, as your instant actor, I think we still need government intervention as long as the intervention being given by the government will protect the consumers naman. Hindi yung iba kasi they only create a certain intervention or rules and regulation pero it does not actually protect the consumers. So, yan. And then we also have the global integration of the markets. So, in-explain ko yan on my previous slide. Explain ko lang ulit dito for in a very short or brief explanation. When you say global integration, since there is now the globalization, sabi ko nga kanina, that we have now a equal flow of products. So if may iPhone 11 sa Amerika, may iPhone 11 na rin dito sa Pilipinas. Hindi kagaya dati, kung may iPhone 5 sa Amerika, iPhone 3 pa lang yung nandito sa Pilipinas. So kumbaga hindi tayo updated or outdated na yung ating product being used. So yan. That is for claim number 1. So next is we have the claim number 2 here. Globalization is inevitable and then irreversible. So anong meaning yan? This claim contends that globalization promotes the expansion of unalterable market forces motivated by technological improvements that facilitate the unavoidable worldwide integration of state economies. Nation states, political parties, and civil society organizations have no option but to adapt to inevitable forces of globalization. Meaning lang dito, when you say globalization, minsan talaga globalization cannot be controlled. Even though there is a government intervention, globalization pa rin ay palaki ng palaki. Or the interconnection between countries ay palaki ng palaki. Most especially, we're now using the internet, di ba? All of us can communicate to each other internationally. Whenever we want, or whenever, wherever, kung saan ka man napadpad sa ibang part ng Luzon, you can still communicate with others. You're not isolated, di ba? Like for example, with the use of Facebook, the use of Instagram, or this one, we have the use of YouTube, di ba? So, yan. And globalization is inevitable. And most likely, it is more of technological improvements. Sa number 2 lang, when you say globalization is inevitable and irreversible, a very good example here is the use of technology in producing products. Kasi before, 'di ba, kadamihan ng factories natin or the kadamihan ng companies natin, they need manpower. And when you say manpower, you need to hire a certain number of people. Let us say, gumagawa ka ng ano ba mga technologies, gumagawa ka ng cellphone. So kailangan mo ng mga tao for you to make cellphones, 'di ba? Gumagawa ka ng mga sasakyan. So kailangan mo lahat ng tao para gawin yung sasakyan. Para may division of labor, ikaw ang taga-kabit nito, taga-kabit niyan, 'di ba? Gumagawa ka ng computers, your company is making computers. So you need to gather all of the people uh, para magtrabaho sa company mo, which is really good for the economy. 'Di ba? You will help the people, bibigyan mo sila ng sweldo. Pag nagkasweldo sila, they have now the power or the purchasing power to buy whatever they want. So pag bumili silang products ng isang country, that will add up na naman sa GDP natin or sa gross domestic product ng isang country, 'di ba? So that is good. Pero because of technological advancement, yan nga inevitable. So, ibig sabihin unavoidable, hindi kailangan mo na mag-adjust. Even though you would like to keep all of your people to work for you, matatalo ka sa market or matatalo ka sa competition. Kasi minsan, ang trabaho ng machine ay mas mabilis at mas maganda sa trabaho ng mga tao. Okay? So, minsan ganon. So, anong ginagawa ng ibang companies now? Of course, they need to remove some of their employees and then to be replaced by a certain machine. Instead noon, ang ikaw, tagalagay ka ng tornilyong yan, hindi na. May machine nang naglalagay sa tornilyo na yan, di ba? And they're also known as yung mga industrial engineers natin or mechanical engineers natin. So they're responsible for making this technology to make the industry faster and then efficient and effective in a way to make a product to be processed on a very short period of time. Diba? Yung mga ganyang bagay. Okay, so next tayo, we have claim number 3. Nobody is in charge of globalization. This argues that globalization is manifested through a self-regulating market. What is attractive with globalization is that nobody is in control of the process. Thus, it is not regulated by any individual, any nation state, or any organization. The international market is an electronic herd of anonymous stock, bond, and money, traders, and transnational foreign investors, integrated by global screens and networks. So, anong ibig sabihin natin dito sa claim number 3, nobody's in charge of globalization? From the word itself, walang may hawak sa globalization. Okay? No one regulates globalization. Kasi nga, globalization pertains to all of the countries in our own globe. And all of the countries have their own different rules and regulations, di ba? There are different government intervention. Kung sa North Korea, bawal ang imported products. Sa Amerika, pwede. Pwede silang mag-export. Sa North Korea, hindi. Di ba? All of those things are part of globalization. But one thing is clear here is that, excuse me, walang nag-handle ng globalization natin. Even though we have the most powerful countries, di ba? Even though we have the Russia, we have United States of America, even in China, kahit may big part sila sa isang globalization, it does not mean that they control all of the parts of globalization. Diba sabi nga rin ng rejectionist natin that globalization is very broad. No one can control globalization. Kasi nga, globalization pertains to all of the countries, to all of the economic aspects of the different countries, all of those things. So, yun ang ating sinasabi dito. Even though we have different trading blocks, like for example, ASEAN, di ba? When you say ASEAN here, minsan tinatanggal nila yung tariff being collected to these imported and exported products. Hindi rin siya parang, even the trading block cannot as well control the globalization. The same with EU, European Union, even that is a very big trading block, it doesn't mean that they could control globalization. Okay. So next here is we have claim number 4. Globalization benefits everyone in the long run. These affirmative benefits include an unmatched increase in the investment and trade, the incorporation to global trade of the globe's most densely inhabited regions, more chances for the less developed countries to develop their standards of living, faster dissemination of information, technological innovation, and the rise of skilled jobs. So meaning here, when you say globalization benefits everyone, from the word itself, it helps everyone. From the less developed countries, from the poorest of the poor, hanggang sa mga pinakamayaman na tao, which is true nga naman. Because remember, here in globalization, it creates job. Minsan, because there are different advantages and disadvantages ng globalization. Minsan, it creates job. Minsan din, it removes job. Diba? Paano ba nagke-create ng job ang globalization natin? Of course, pag may isang businessman na nagpatayo ng sarili niyang business on a certain country, of course, hindi kailangan niya ng mga tao who will work for them in order to produce the product. Now, if that businessman employed the citizens or the locals of that product, we have now salary being paid to these employees, which is good nga naman. You created a job, gumawa ka ng trabaho, and then meron na nagkakapera na rin tong mga taong ito, which also adds up on the gross domestic product of the country itself. Diba? So we really need to encourage foreign investors to invest in our own economy. Para nang sa ganun, magkaroon tayo ng trabaho. Kasi pag lahat ng tao nagtatrabaho, so ibig sabihin lahat ng tao nagkakasweldo. So therefore, if there is salary being paid for these people, ang people natin may increase their own purchasing power so that they could buy whatever they want, di ba? So that is good for everyone. Kahit yung pinakamahirap natin, pwede natin siyang matulungan. Mabigyan siya ng trabaho, mabigyan siya ng hanap buhay, and so on and so forth. Okay? Claim number 5, globalization furthers the spread of democracy in the world. This claim links the concept of globalization and market with that of democracy, which provides individuals with economic choices. According to Frieden, and in 1996, globalist treat freedom, free markets, free trade, and democracy as identical concepts. Yan ay sinasabi natin kanina on the claim number 1, di ba? We have now the liberalization. Since globalization is becoming bigger and bigger, in some point, nawawaling government intervention natin, nagkakaroon tayo ng free trade, nagkakaroon ng privatization, the democracy as well is being spread in the world. Sabi nila, like for example, America alone, the democracy, the freedom is good, di ba? Before the Philippines here, we are a very conservative country, di ba? Bawal yan, bawal dito. Kababae mong tao, lumalabas ka na, di ba? But in some point in America, they were liberated first, and then nakita naman natin as part of globalization, we were now influenced by this culture of Americans. And then as time passed by, the culture that we have are also being influenced even without the influence of Americans na pumupunta dito sa ating bansa. Kasi if you're going to remember, we were colonized, di ba, by the Spaniards. So pumunta ang mga Spaniards dito here in the Philippines, and they stayed here for around or approximately 333 years, di ba? And from that, madami tayong na-adapt. Kasi nga, we are living with these people, or we are living with the Spaniards. Pero because of the use of internet now, kahit walang mga Amerikano dito, we are watching all of their YouTube videos, di ba? The Korean videos, mga K-pop bang tawag nyo doon? Yun na, we are now being influenced of liberation, or we're now being influenced of democracy, di ba? And our Philippine Constitution then was tailor-fit, or it was adopted by the Philippine government coming from the US Constitution. So, madaming magkakaparehas sa atin. And that's part of globalization. Because of globalization, we were influenced of democracy. Even in different countries. Remember, ilan na lang ang countries natin who does not have democracy. Like for example, North Korea. Diba? Noon ang Cuba, they are communist, still communist pa rin naman sila dito, but the democracy now is being developed because of this globalization. Nakikita nila yung benefit ng globalization because globalization goes with democracy, goes with freedom of the people. And then nakikita naman nila that if there is freedom, there is democracy, it also contributes to the development of the country. Kasi nga, everyone could start their own business, everyone could do whatever they want, it creates more money, and so on and so forth. Unlike yung North Korea natin, the freedom is very limited. Dapat gantong gawin nyo, bawal ang ganyan, and so on and so forth. But if you look on the economy of North Korea, even though there is no concrete na report on the economic status of North Korea, mo-observe mo naman na hindi sila ganun, hindi ko na sinasabi na mahirap sila. Hindi sila ganun kayaman compared with other countries, di ba? So, yun ang sinasabi ko in terms of claim number 5. So, last na tayo, I think. We have claim number 6 here. Globalization requires a war on terror. According to Kaplan 2003, you need to possess both military and economic supremacy in order to spread your ideas worldwide. This claim integrates the idea of market globalism with militaristic and nationalistic ideas linked with American-headed global war on terror. Yun din. As part of globalization then, it's like a war. Hindi yung war as in war na may nagbabarilan, may mga nagpapasabog, and so on and so forth. It is a war in terms of economy. So one good example here is the economic supremacy of states versus China. And even though number 1 pa rin si states, alam naman natin sa China ay it is developing, or the economy of China is growing fast in terms of their own GDP, in terms of their own product. Kaya nga sabi nila, di ba, The God created the world and the rest came from China. Tama nga naman, di ba? Halos lahat ng ating products na nakikita natin were made in China. Like for example, kahit yung cellphone mo is Samsung. Cellphone mo is Huawei talaga is China, di ba? Samsung or Apple. Pag tingnan mo sa likod niya, it is made in China. It is assembled in China. Even though the main office of Apple is in America. Kasi nga, bakit ba? Halos lahat ng mga companies natin are investing in China. Kasi nga, because of the big population of Chinese people, pag nag-employ ka ng mga people or residents of China, the labor cost is very low. Kasi nga madaming tao. And madami naghahanap ng trabaho. Since madaming tao, madami naghahanap ng trabaho, they're willing to enter your company and to be paid even in the lowest wage that they could get. So, okay lang. So, malas yan or pangit yan sa mga empleyado natin, pero that is good for the company or the owners of the company. Kasi nga, lower labor cost, mababa ang labor cost, ibebenta mo yung product ng mahal, mas malaki ang profit that you could get on investing your own money in China. Okay? So, still, economic supremacy and then both military. When you say military supremacy, example ko na naman, we have United States and then China. Diba? China as well is investing their own money in military kasi nga hindi mo na talaga maaalis yan pag mayaman ka isang country. Unlike lang sa Japan, kasi sa Japan even though they are a rich country, mayroon kasi siyang parang during World War II kasi, going back to the history, of course, they participated in the World War II, di ba? They conquered some sides of or the eastern hemisphere of the globe, di ba? They colonized us for how many years? 2 years, di ba? In China, in in Korea as well, and even in Russia. So parang penalty niya or sanction sa ginawa ng Japanese, the United States sanctioned Japanese government or the country of Japan. Ibig sabihin, they're only limited for creating their own military equipment. So bawal silang bumili ng madaming military equipment. Kasi nga, yun ang parang penalty nila during the World War II. For China naman, balik tayo kay China at States tayo. Of course, they have the ability to buy their own military equipment, di ba? Kasi they have the money. Because it is still based on the economy of the country in order for them to buy a certain military equipment. Of course, pag mas mayaman yung country, paano ba natin sinasabi na mayaman yung country? Of course, the GDP. Parang GDP is now gross domestic product together with the GNP, the gross national product. It's now parang ito yung kita or income of that country. And remember, malaki lang ang kita ng isang country kung madaming nagtatrabaho or lahat ng tao as much as possible nagtatrabaho. That will contribute now on the GDP or the income of the country. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kung may pera ka, madaming katrabaho, madaming pera, you have now the capability to buy different military equipment. Pero sa Japan, ibang case na yun. In-explain ko na kanina. Okay? War on terror tayo dyan. So, next is we have as asserted by Barnett in 2004, the globe daw is divided into 3 diverse regions. First one, we have the functioning core. From the word itself, when you say the functioning core, halos ito daw yung mga nagtatrabahong mga tao. They are the working group of the globalization. So, ibig sabihin, sila yung mga companies who created different products. Without the functioning core, the globalization or the globe will not work. Of course, walang mga products to be produced, all of those things. And this is categorized by global network connectivity. They're responsible for the financial transactions, liberal media, cooperative security, nations having stable democratic governments, practice of transparency, increasing standards of living, and more deaths by suicide than by killing. So, ito, last sentence na katawa to. more deaths by suicide by killings or done by killings. Of course, parang yung sa kanila daw mas madaming namamatay in terms of suicide kaysa yung pinapatay. Well, of course, from the word itself, they are the functioning core. Kasi kaya may mga ganyang pangyayari, mas madami ang deaths by suicide rather than killings because they are working 24/7. Yung minsan, did you ever know in China that in some companies, you need to work for at least 10 to 12 hours and you need to commit all of your efforts on your own job. And you're only being paid for ilan lang, di ba? Because the labor cost is very low. Kaya ang daming nagpapakamatay sa China. Hindi lang siya binabalita pero madami talaga. Even in Japan, do you know kasi ang culture ng Japan, once they have entered into a certain profession or on a certain job, pagkapasok nila, doon na rin sila mag-retire. Di ba? Kasi because they have their own concentration, they have their own passion on doing their own job. Once they have decided, they need to give pride on their own decision. Hindi tayong yung iba kasi sa Pilipinas, di ba? Paiba-iba ng trabaho, balimbing. Trabaho ko noon, parang trabaho mo noon, government employee. Tapos naging teacher ka na naman. Naging private individual ka na naman, di ba? Ang dami nating mga jobs. Or in other words, kasi diskarte lang yan, sabi natin. But in Japan, medyo they take pride in their own jobs. Kung naging teacher ako, dito ako sa school na to pumasok, hanggang mag-retire ako, ito ang profession ko, all of those things, di ba? And they're known as the functioning core. And when si functioning core kasi, this is the center of our, ano bang tawag sa kanila? Of multinational companies or MNCs. When you say multinational companies, these companies are producing products worldwide. Yung ginigay ko mga examples kanina, for automobiles, we have yung mga yon, Nissan, Honda. For cellphone naman, we have Apple, Samsung, Huawei. Okay, basta any product or any company who is providing products on the different parts of the globe. So, yan yung mga yon. And examples natin, we have North America. Diba? When say North America, nandiyan ang states natin, nandiyan ang ating Canada. Most of Europe, diba? It came from Germany. We also have France. We also have Italy and then Spain. And then Australia, they're also good in their own economy. And a small part of Latin America. When say Latin America, it is the South America. Like for example, pwede rin siyang Brazil, pwede siyang Peru, Argentina, and so on and so forth. Okay? So next tayo, we have number 2 is the non-integrating gap or the gap. So ibig sabihin, on number 2, this refers to regions where globalization is thinning or absent. These regions are plagued by the authoritarian political regimes, government-regulated markets, mass killings, prevalent poverty and diseases, and the breeding ground of global terrorists. Meaning here, when you say the non-integrating gap, sila yung halos, hindi naman sa hindi kasali, pero they give least contribution on globalization. It's not because ayaw nila, pero it is because on their own current situation. Maybe with the use of political ideology. Sabi nga natin on my previous slide, we have the North Korea, di ba? They're practicing communism. Ayaw nila ng may mga mag-import na product, ayaw din nila mag-export na product. So, big sabihin, they are independent in their own. So, since they are independent, they do not want to be, ayaw nila makipaghalubilo sa mga different countries. They have now the least participation in globalization. The same with countries na may mga gera. Most especially in Africa, mga civil wars natin. Of course, if you're an investor, ayaw mo mag-invest sa isang bansa full of war. Kasi kung may war, walang peace, sino ba namang gustong businessman, di ba? Who would invest on that certain country? Kasi alam mo na walang profit, walang bibili, or walang profit na papasok sa'yo. So that is for non-integrating gap. Okay? So mga examples natin here is we have the Caribbean Rim. almost all, sabi ko kanina, African continent, the Balkans, the Caucasus, and then Central Asia, even in China. Hindi naman yung China na buo, ha? On some part of China lang. The Middle East as well, madaming mga civil wars and guerras dyan, and much of Southeast Asia. And last but not least, we have the SIM states. These states lie along the gaps, bloody borders. So, ibig sabihin, minsan, these are the states who are located or near a certain functioning core. Ibig sabihin, malapit sila sa isang bansa na nagtatrabaho. So, therefore, they are now being influenced or minsan ang ginagawa nila, they would like to transfer from their own country to another country who is richer than their own country. Like for example, yan, Pilipinas, 'di ba? Malaysia. Kaya nga sabi natin sa Pilipinas, 'di ba? Ang dami nating OFWs. And for your information, kadamihan din ng gross domestic product natin came from the remittances being sent by OFWs. Yan. Yan ang sinasabi ko. Kasi nga, maybe because of our economic status, some people or some citizens would like to work abroad rather than here in the Philippines. Kasi nga, if you're going to compare nga naman, talagang mas malaking sweldo sa ibang bansa. Because here in the Philippines, we are being paid daily. So, ibig sabihin, ano bang minimum wage natin? For one day, like for 8 to 10 hours siguro, you need to work. And you are only being paid at the lowest salary, which is 300 or 320. Pero sa ibang bansa, they're not being paid daily on a daily basis, but they're being paid on the hours that they render on that certain job. Like for example, in South Korea, di ba? I think in the South Korea, they are being paid hour by hour. I think that is around 2 to 300 pesos. Remember, tingnan mo, yung 1 hour mo doon sa North Korea is your 1 day here in the Philippines. So, anong pipiliin mo? South Korea or Philippines? Of course, if you are a employee, mas pipiliin mo sa mas mataas na sweldo. So, yan ang mga SIM states natin. Hindi naman sa located sila near a certain developing or well-developed country, but they are developing countries who would like to improve. But as part of that developing country, some of our own people or citizens would like to go abroad in order for them to gain more money or wage for their own family. Okay? So that ends our lesson number 1. If you have any question regarding our lesson, please message me na lang in my own personal Facebook account, ha? Not in my own email, because in my email, minsan natatabunan yan. And there are a lot of emails that I am receiving in our G Suite account, and sometimes I may not be able to read your own message through the use of my email. So please message me na lang on my Facebook account, personal Facebook account, regarding our own lesson. If you did not understand something, you would like more elaboration, I'll try my best to answer your question through my Facebook account. So thank you, everyone.